What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. I did an article about 2 months ago predicting that Powkiddy was going to come out with a update to the V90 because they kind of seem to like to stay in that GBA game, sort of kind of on that fringe line. And with the SP coming out from Anbernic, I assumed that they were really going to kind of jump right into it and come out with something new. They did, and it's wildly different than what I thought they were going to come out with. This is the Powkiddy V10, and this little bad boy here plays Game Boy Advance at twice the resolution just off the gun. What else is this handheld hiding? That's what we're about to find out. Let's take a look. This is an interesting little handheld, I have to say, and I kind of am digging it. It's really comfortable to play, but we'll go through all that here as we go through this. We're going to make this a quick, just first look video here. There's a few things that I need to kind of tweak on this before we really do a real deep dive, but we'll start off here on the top here with the I/O. We do have our power and reset button. We do have an OTG and power port right up here on the top as well. On the back here, we do have our shoulder buttons. They are clicky, but they're not super clicky, and most importantly, oh, I just hit myself in the head. They're not very loud when you shake it. It's like they finally figure out the tolerances on these bad boys. The other thing that we have back here is we do have a door for a battery. Don't even need a screw to get this bad boy open. Hopefully it won't fly off. I don't think it will. It seems like it's in there pretty tight. If you'll notice the battery, it only takes about half the compartment. I feel like they could have put a 6,000 milliamp battery in there, but I have a feeling that we know why they haven't done that. So we'll kind of talk about that here as we go along as well. On the left-hand side, we have nothing. On the right-hand side, we have nothing. On the bottom down here, we do have a micro SD hole. This one did come with a branded 64 gig SD card, and then we do have a 3.5 hole. On the front here, we do have our 3.5-inch OCA laminated screen here with a 480 by 320 resolution. We do have R3 and L3. Yeah, you heard me correctly. This is L3 and this is R3. We'll get back to that. We do have our face buttons, which feel really good. These are a conductive rubber membrane, and they feel real good. D-pad feels pretty good too, especially for Powkiddy. They tend to go away from the good D-pads when they get a good one, so hopefully they'll keep using this one. I feel like they might have used this in another device, but I can't put my finger on it. But it is actually a really good feel. And then we got some clicky start and select buttons right here. Okay, so a couple things we'll talk about right off the bat. I wouldn't do a game, didn't I? Sure did. So there is 2 select buttons, and I'll put the diagram. This is when you may actually want to look at the directions to try to figure stuff out, because nothing in the directions actually is correct. It tells you things like to do the volume, hit select and up. Well, that doesn't do me any good. But then you realize, or I did eventually, that there's actually 2 select buttons. The L3 is also a select button. So then I tried select and up. That doesn't work either. But R3, which is only listed as R3 and not a select button. And if you hit over instead of up, you can change the volume. It's not up or down, it's over. Wouldn't have mattered with the other buttons, though. It still doesn't work with the buttons that it tells you it does. So just word to the wise. I believe that this is running possibly a ArkOS version. I believe it's for the 353V or VS. The VS, the one that doesn't have Android. I'm not sure. I have a V, so I don't know which one doesn't have Android. VS, I think. I believe that that's what this is running. That's what it's acting like. And I assume that's why we have an L3 and an R3 button on here instead of this being volume. Now that aside, like I said, we'll come back to the volume thing, but there's no volume switches on here. There's no menu button. We just have a reset button, a power button, right? But we don't have all this room. How do we not have volume buttons? And my assumption would be that these were intended to be volume, but since Powkiddy decided to borrow somebody else's operating system again, probably, hopefully with permission this time, they don't have any way to do volume. If they were borrowing from the 353V, we would have a side volume, so it'd be different. It's a different layout. So I think that they did create this, though, with the intention of these being volume. Hope is that somebody at the Ark team decides to take this up, or some other team, dev team somewhere, but, you know, the Ark team, seeing as it's already based kind of off Ark, and makes these into volume buttons again, and gets rid of this L3, R3 thing. We don't need L3 and R3 on this handheld. Now, you can use your D-pad as a joystick, so that is an option on here, so that part's cool, but you're still not going to need your R3 and L3. You're barely going to need R2 and L2, honestly. So that's just, it's kind of an interesting little thing. So there's a bunch of really weird stuff with this handheld like that right now, which I think will get fixed. Ever tell somebody to buy something based off of what might be, you know, you base it off of what you have today. And that's unfortunately the kind of the situation we're in today. I will go through the specs here really quick, and then I've reviewed a ton of 3326 devices. You can go back and look at my videos from like the R36S or anything kind of like along that line and see what I did for performance and stuff like that. So that's not really going to be the focus here today. Just going to be a real quick kind of in and out, and then I will do a more in-depth the review once I kind of figure out how to fix some stuff on here. I have been using this for about 2 days now, and I really like it. Game Boy Advance, well, we'll get into it a little bit, but it's an optimal Game Boy Advance machine. Like we discussed before, this is running Arch Linux, and it does have a 3.5-inch IPS OCA fully laminated display that's rocking out at 480 by 320. The advantage with the Game Boy Advance is Game Boy Advance its native resolution is 240 by 160, so if you think that one through. This is running the 3326 quad-core Cortex with an A35. It is a Mali G31 GPU. It's running 1 gigabyte of DDR3L RAM. The external storage you can run up to 256. When we come back to do a follow-up review on this, I will swap out this card and everything. I did test some things on here. Portmaster and stuff like that's working fine, but for some reason, my Pico files aren't working. I have a paid Pico, and for some reason, I put the files in where I was supposed to. The same place I do my other Arc devices, so something's goofy with that. But I will figure that out before the next review, so that's nor here nor there right now. It does have a 1-watt speaker, which is right here. It's interesting because at level 75 you can start to hear it, and by level 100 your neighbors can hear it. It's crazy, but it's a real crisp speaker. It actually gets some depth in some games, which is weird because sometimes it sounds tinny like you'd expect a 1-watt speaker to, but every once in a while it seems like it gets a little depth when you're playing games, and we'll try to demonstrate that either today or on another day. But it's kind of impressive, but it did take me 48 hours before I figured out how to change the volume, that it was side to side, and it was the only one that doesn't say select. Just screwing around with it, and finally I accidentally changed the volume. So that was pretty crazy. It does have that 3000 milliamp battery that's built into here. You could honestly get about 7 to 8 hours out of this. My experience, about 7 hours from start to stop. So, and that's playing, like a little bit of PS1 and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's some heavier systems on top of Game Boy Advance. They do say you can use any kind of Type-C. With as many of these handhelds as we've seen melting down in the last couple of months, I would recommend probably just stick with the cable that came with it. Probably going to be like a 2 amp 5-watt cable, and just stick with that bad boy, whatever it happens to be, and then get the right brick. I know it kind of sucks they don't give us bricks anymore, but get the right brick. This does not have Wi-Fi built into it, but it does work well externally. I actually have a Wi-Fi card that I've been testing for something else, and so I've been using it in here to do my testing for the other things. So I'm kind of double dipping. If you've been a friend of the channel for a while, I went through a whole bunch, and I think 2 out of like 8 Wi-Fi cards I tried a few months ago worked. So now I think that this one's going to work on everything, and so I'm trying to find a kind of a jack of all trades card, but so far it's been working on everything. So I thought I'd test it out on here. Haven't had any problems with that yet. This does have OTG support for doing updates because it is ArkOS, but on top of that, you still need to be able to get online if you want to do an over-the-air update. So you would probably want to get yourself a Wi-Fi card. These things go on sale all the time. I think I got this one off Amazon for like $8. They can be as high as 20. It really depends on what you want, but this one works really well, and it has been recommended for handhelds in the past. And I think that's all we have as far as going over the device itself. So I will show you a couple of things here. So if we're going to go in, I'm just going to go around in circles. Yeah. So the way they break this menu system down, you're going to notice this, and it's going to be really frustrating. So it looks like you have your box art. Eventually you run out, and I don't remember where it is in here, but eventually you get to a point where it just stops. Like they got bored. They got like part way through B or something, and then they just decided to stop doing it. It is what it is. This is just the card that came with it. Then they break this down kind of into regions too, so official games are actually going to not be in the English language typically. So these are going to be the official games from overseas, so Chinese, Japanese titles. You might find your Mother 3 in here on some of the systems, but as far as this system goes, that's kind of where that's at. And because it's Shark Week, it's only appropriate that we play Shark Tale. Duh. So this is on GBA. This is just straight out of the box. No settings changes, nothing like that. Only thing I did was add the FPS counter. Jerk. Get out of here. So this plays really smooth, plays well. You will notice in things like Super Nintendo, you might want to change the default emulator and bring it over to RetroArch. I believe it's trying to run standalone. I'm not really sure. It kind of seems like it's kind of picky and choosy when it does that, so I'm not sure what exactly it's doing, to be honest. But so that it's going to be kind of a little bit of a Game Boy Advance experience for you. To get out of a screen like this, just to get back to your main menu, it's just going to be your other select 2 or L3, and start, bring you right back to the main menu there for it. I hadn't played XXX in a long time, so I thought I'd play that, and then I realized I remembered why I hadn't played it in a long time. Things that didn't come preloaded on here are like PSP, not a whole lot of PlayStation. There was only 7 games on here to begin with. I added a couple more just for testing purposes. Same with the PSP thing. I actually haven't even tried any of them yet, but I put them on here for testing. We can try one here real quick, see what happens. Sorry if it's really loud. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm, and it's like 6 in the morning. I haven't gone to bed yet, so if I sound a little weird, that's what's going on here today. Now I gotta remember how to turn this thing into a D-pad. I've never really played this game before, but I'm stuck. So this isn't going to do the cool Muse thing where you just tap it and it goes into a D-pad. So I'm going to have to go into menu here. And we're going to have to change over the analog. The analog probably thinks it has one since it has an L3. This isn't always the best way to do this, but for what we're doing here, I think it's going to work. I'm guessing, really, but we're going to find out because on-screen controls ain't going to help. Yeah, there we go. And then we use our R button to shoot. Kind of an awkward way to do that. Okay. So yeah, so she works pretty good. D-pad is growing on me. I actually like it even more now than when I wrote my article, so now I feel dumb. But, I mean, I did say it wasn't the worst D-pad, and it really wasn't. It just, it seems like it's breaking in, and it feels better and better as I play with it all the time. Where am I supposed to go? Oh, it doesn't matter. Alright, so this is actually holding at 30. I didn't think it was going to. That was the whole reason why I went in here. I think that's pretty solid. Interestingly enough, I put some N64 games on here, and I'm not seeing those, so those must not have switched. My DS game switched, though. Weird. I wonder what it's going to use for DS. So we can look in here under emulator settings and look at DS and see Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Game Boy, Virtual Boy, Super SNES. Where is DS? We're gonna try something. It's probably Drastic, so it's not going through RetroArch, which is why I'm not seeing it there. Okay, so to get into Drastic, both selects, oddly enough. So it's select, and then you're in Drastic, and then you'll have the option to be able to make any changes you need to make in here. Guessing I'm running separate screens. That's usually how Drastic does this. No, I guess you can just hit select. I guess it's not even both of them, it's just one of them. I guess I need my R3 button all of a sudden. Joke's on me, except for I have all these other buttons I'm not using. Little stylus on my screen. Look at that. Pretty cool. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm loving it. Because everything is a arrow key. Can't select it. I got my little pointer out on it. Come on, baby. I'm going no guns. No guns. Alright, well, I'm sure if I screw around with this a little bit, we'll get it defect. We'll get it to work. And then this guy's going to defect. We are apparently playing some XXX. It's pretty cool. This is actually holding at 60, so we're good there. You'd think after all these years I would know how to play this. I've done this, used it for demos for a while, but you only really get to play the first couple minutes, seems like. As you're just trying to see if things work. This guy's not very good at dodging bullets, but yeah, we're in a solid 60, so we are playing this on Game Boy Advanced. So we are already seeing that upscaled resolution, which is pretty awesome. If you want to make it a little bit better or anything like that, I'm sure you could do some scaling of some sort. You are going to want to do integer scaling on something like Super Nintendo on here, just to kind of clean it up a little bit. As far as this goes, though, I think this looks pretty good all by itself. I don't know that I need anything special to happen to it. Pretty happy with it the way that it is. Not a whole lot of complaints. This thing is so comfortable. We do have to talk about one thing here before we get off. This thing is extremely comfortable, and it's really weird. I don't know why it's so comfortable. Maybe it's, I mean, it's not the most comfortable thing that I own to play, but it's just, it's so square you wouldn't think it would be comfortable, but it really is. So you can really take advantage of that, which is pretty sweet. And they did a really good job getting this ridge and everything right on this one finally. You know, again, no rattling. And actually what you hear rattling is the Wi-Fi, so if you hold on to that, you really got nothing. But the way they did this is they kind of concaved it so your fingers are in there. It's amazing that Powkiddy spent this much engineering time and effort on a really inexpensive device, but some of their more recent higher end devices, build quality hasn't always been there. Kind of unfortunate actually when you think about it. Pay more, get less. But this has always kind of been their niche too. Has always been like this $40 to $60 market. So their higher end stuff, you know, that's more new to them. They've always had it, but not to the extent that they do now. I'm really tired. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. So let me know what you guys think about the V10 down on my thingamabob. If you have questions or you want me to review something on this, let me know, because this is just going to be, like I said, this is just a quick look at it. Just kind of see what it looked like, get it out there, see what it felt like. I have been playing with it for a couple of days now, but I wanted to be able to share my experience with you in case you are trying to take advantage of some of these pre-sale promos or these early sale promos that are going on right now. These first batchers, or maybe even second batch probably at this point, but there are still some promos out there for this handheld, so take a look around. But I think she tops out at right around 40s. You can get some really smoking deals, and I'm just trying to think of what we could get a year ago handhelds for the price of this, and you couldn't get this. The quality and everything else. It's unfortunate they used a 3326, just such an overplayed chip now, but they probably have boxes of them. I was really hoping to see a 3566 in here. I don't know why. You know, the price would go up another 10 bucks or so just for that chipset alone, and you put another battery in there, a bigger battery, you know, we would have been going up another 20 bucks probably total. We would have made this into a $60-65 handheld. I get what they're doing. You know, I'm here for it. This is so it's everything that I didn't think that it was going to be. But yeah, anything that you want to see in a video, any questions you have that you want me to answer during a video, or just in general, leave them down in my thingamabob. You know, guys know I love talking to you. I'm going to go to bed. I will see you when I wake up. And if you're bored while I'm sleeping, there's gonna be a couple videos here YouTube chose for you to help keep you awake so that I can sleep. So nobody's bugging me. You guys are gonna be preoccupied watching videos, and I'm gonna be snoring. Anyways, that's all I got for today. I'm out. Bye-bye!